Time to talk parenting here on The Circle, and believe it or not, toddlers and teenagers actually have a lot in common, but it's not just the whinging and tantrums. Parenting expert Michael Gross says there are similarities in their brain development and how they respond to challenges. To explain more, please welcome Michael back to The Circle. So, Michael, in a nutshell, what you're saying is when dealing with your teenage children, go back to when they were toddlers and sort of treat them in a similar way, is that right?
I think if you want to understand a teenager, you take about 12 years away. The issues, underlying issues are pretty similar. So a 14-year-old's pretty similar to a 2-year-old. It's about pushing for independence. It might be for your 2-year-old, get off the couch. For your 14-year-old, it's sort of come home.
Yeah.
So, and I actually think you find your parenting voice with your toddlers. So kids are born, babies, it's all about soft love. And then suddenly a child will actually outgrow its body. The body will outgrow the brain, and you've got to move from soft love to firm love, and as a parent find your backbone. So
that's the no stage.
That's the no stage, and they've moved out of the no stage, which is around about 2 and 3, moved into the next stage when they stop saying no and they start asking why. So they move to another stage.
It never stops, and as Lawrence just said, once you get through the teenage years, and then they're adults and they're still annoying you.
Well, there's some similarities between kids in primary school and kids in their 20s.
Oh, that was what I was going to ask.
Say, feel relieved now?
Oh, yes. Because I said to the girls, and Loris, I said mine are 21 and 24, and I wish I'd known about this whole teenager and toddler thing, because it made so much sense to me when I read it over the weekend, that they are exactly like toddlers when they're teenagers. And I said, but then what do you do when they're 21 and 24? Now, what did you say? Primary school children?
Well, there's 4 stages. We've got the toddlers and the teens, and then you've got the in-between, which is the eye of the cyclone, which we sort of call childhood, or latency is the technical term.
Yes.
Then you've got in their 20s. So what we do know is the habits that kids develop and you develop with your kids in their primary school years will come back to haunt you or applaud you in some ways in their 20s. So if your kids helped at home when they were primary school kids, and if they were at home in their 20s, you've got a reasonable chance they may help at home.
The last time you were on, you mentioned this pattern, and I have taken that to heart. I've got a 12-year-old, and she is choring like nothing on earth.
Holding at the bits?
I'm making her do chores now.
Okay.
In her 20s, I come back to go, yes, thank you, Michael.
If only I'd met you earlier, Michael.
Can we talk about what I really enjoyed about your reading was the theme of independence. So a toddler is trying to become independent, as is a teenager. How do we broach that and support that and encourage it by still keeping our authority?
That's a really good point. It's about not changing their behaviour, but channeling it. We want to do it in safe ways. So I use a lot of scaffolding or setting boundaries. So with your 2 and 3-year-old, you've got a little bike so you can ride to the front of the street, or not the front of the street, but the front gate, so to speak.
Right.
So similar sort of thing with your teenager when they want to go out. It's it's not you're going into the city for a
they can go to the corner of the street when they're a teenager.
Even a little bit more than that. But yeah, it's setting boundaries and allowing them to push those boundaries. And when they show they can actually do it, then you push it out a little bit more. Now, that all sounds really good in theory, and kids will often push the boundaries, and you'll know they'll push the boundaries when they say, Mum, can I, or whatever it is. And again, you've got to have a bit of a backbone as a parent. You sort of learn through your first one. The boundaries are pretty high with your first one, and your firstborn. And as you move through, you sort of learn, you relax a little bit, and you learn what's important and what's not. You tend to give them a little bit more freedom as well. But I think it's really important for them to have those sort of boundaries where they sort of push against them. So that notion of independence is an important stage. You'll worry if your kids don't push for independence.
Okay.
And so we often think, oh, this independence stuff, I wish they wouldn't keep asking. I wish they wouldn't want to do that. Well, a lot of parents worry when they don't. So it is in some ways the harder times, and our research shows that the 2 most problematic times or ages for parents are 2 and 3-year-olds and 11 to 14-year-olds.
And 20 to 25.
Do you give them a choice, say the teenager, do you give them a choice if they said, I want to go out into the city, Mum and Dad, and I want to do this and this and this? Would you say as a parent, no worries, you've got to be home by this time? And if they argued that, do you give them a choice and say, well, you can be home at this time and do this, Do you know what I mean? Like giving them actually a choice so they feel like they're part of the process.
Yeah, look, as a management principle with teenagers, it's good to take in their own voice and go, this is what I think, and what do you think? But I think you offer parameters. You can go out, but you've got to be home at a certain time. What's a reasonable time for you? And they're like, 12, sorry, let's push it back a little bit.
So ask them what they think a reasonable time is.
Yeah. And it's, again, you've got to know your own kids, but I often like to get it from the kids first off, and then, come back and say, I'm not sure, I don't think 12's, for lots of reasons, for these reasons, 12's probably not a great idea, but let's try out X. So that's that boundary setting, so to speak, and it's not, coming in and going, do it this way, it's actually coming in and that's how we can do it. And again, some kids are easier than others, so again, I know with one of my kids it would have been easy, another one, we approach it slightly differently.
Michael, is it important for kids to be able to see that you can compromise, or does that show you up as weak if you compromise?
No, that's good. Look, I often think that kids will... The short answer to that is no, it doesn't. But you've got to be able to stand your ground, and I think whenever you go into a negotiation with teenagers, it's always a hard one. You've got to know where your ground is. I'll go to this far. The other thing with teenagers, I'll say it very quickly, I'll see I'm being wound up, is that it's similar to toddlers, is the simple fact, give yourself more time when you negotiate with them.
Yeah.
So they'll often grab you just as they're going to school.
Oh, they're good at that.
And it's actually saying, no, not at this time. Actually, see me, after work when I'm a bit more relaxed or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So time is something you've got to put on your side as a parent.
And can you say to that quickly, I can see this is a really important thing for you to discuss, so let's make a time to talk about this together?
That's beautifully said. Can I? Yeah, but it is. You're picking up something. I can see it's important to you, but now's not a great time.
My girlfriend's taught me that strategy when a colleague does that. It's valuing that means something to that person.
It is.
Yeah. Oh.
And it's often coming up with those lines, which when we're under pressure as well, they just don't happen. So.
Great advice. Please thank parenting expert Michael Gross. I always learn so much. Ollie Rhodes is just about to hit that toddler stage, God help me. Details of Michael's suggestions for understanding toddlers and teen behaviour can be found on our website, so jump on there.